Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So like Mr. Tellier mentioned, I am the 12th grade senior college and career counselor. So I work mainly with our seniors, but through some of our other work, I typically work with some of the underclassmen. So like I'll work with juniors here and there. So typically as a counseling department, we do a lot of things together. So a lot of the programming that we do, like peer mentoring or peer tutoring, I collaborate a lot with the other counselors. So I'm kind of starting to see, especially with the juniors that will be coming up next year, as seniors, that I'm already getting to know a lot of them. Like a lot of them, their first year was my freshman year, so, or my first year was their freshman year, so I know a lot of names already. So that is the nice thing, that although I may not know them all 4 years, I have some exposure to them by the time they get to me. So with that in mind, just kind of wanted to review our counseling department. So if you're someone that has a student in 9th through 11th grade, they would probably see either Mrs. Diaz or Ms. Rigda as they're trying to work in their college planning goals. So although I do focus on college and career, they're still able to kind of game plan with their current school counselor as to their goals for college and career. So if you have a student in 9th through 11th, A through K, it would be Mrs. Diaz, and then 9th through 11th, L through Z would be Mrs. Rigda. So please feel free to reach out to them just like you normally would. They're just as knowledgeable as I am in a lot of the things. So just kind of keep that in mind as I'm going through the presentation today and as you have questions that come up. With this in mind, I always like to kind of start by reviewing our graduation requirements. So these are both our district graduation requirements and also our state. So the first thing on there, I believe a lot of you guys grabbed a handout when you walked in that had the 3 steps for our graduation requirements. So the first thing is making sure that all of our students meet their core subject areas that are required by the state of Ohio. So that requires that all of our students meet 22 credits by the time that they graduate. And then there are some subject areas that require more than the others, and that comes from the state of Ohio. So for example, like your English and math is 4, and then your science and social studies, that's 3. And then in those core areas, there are certain cores that are required, like Algebra 1 or geometry and things like that. So that is all highlighted in that one handout that you picked in on your way in. The second requirement is that we are looking at scoring a 684 on the Algebra 1 and then the English 10 end of course exam. So typically most of our students, by the time that they reach their senior year, they would have earned that 684 in those end of course exams. So if you currently have a 10th or 11th grader, that might be something that you're currently working towards, or maybe even a freshman. And then lastly, showing readiness, which is the SEALs, which can be a little bit confusing for parents. The SEALs, there's 12 of them. Some are state defined, some are local, and all students need at least 1 state SEAL in order to graduate. And those are typically highlighted on their transcripts. So if you receive a transcript, you either email your child's school counselor or they bring a copy home. It will show on there their SEAL. So actually, all 3 counselors will be doing one-on-one meetings with every student in our building starting next week. So the freshmen, sophomore, and juniors will be meeting with their school counselors, and then I will be meeting with the seniors. Over the summer, we also send graduation plans home, so you may be able to kind of look that over if you take a look at the plan. So with that in mind, we kind of jump into the college application process or college admissions. So when thinking about college, we may require less than what a typical college looks at when they're looking at a transcript. So we only require 3 credits of science or social studies, but many colleges want to see that your student has 4 years in science and social studies. So oftentimes, all of our students will kind of start to alter their schedule by senior year with things that they're interested in versus things that they're not. So we typically require that we remain consistent with taking 4 core classes, so English, math, science, and social studies. And then foreign language is probably the biggest thing that I think a lot of students are trying to or starting to question, but most colleges truly do require for you to have 2 to 3 years of a foreign language. It could be Spanish, it could be French, it could be American Sign Language, it could be, so in the past I've had students that have done like Arabic through the college, like LCC, through the College Credit Plus program. So it doesn't have to be one exact language, but they typically require consistent 2 to 3 years in a foreign language. And what happens is if you don't complete that at the high school level, when you enter college, you kind of have to make that up and do it. So those high school credits will count to satisfy that college level requirement. So it's not something that they have to take when they're entering their freshman year or sophomore year of college. So when students start to think about college, there's a few things that I typically recommend that students kind of focus on. So location and size. I just did presentations with the seniors last week, and the biggest thing is I tell them, like, what's important to you? Are you going to be overwhelmed by being at a big campus, or do you think a smaller campus would be more beneficial to you? So I think a lot of us, our experience from when we applied to college or when we went to college is a lot different than what it is today. And many of the campuses have changed a little bit, and some are a lot bigger than we may have experienced when we went to school. So I talk about my own experience with college. So I knew that I wasn't comfortable with being at a huge school, but also I didn't want super small, so like Cleveland State was a good middle ground for me. So kind of exploring that with our students, because I know a lot of our students are more on the shy side, and some are more on the outgoing side. So personality and goals is a big thing that comes into mind when looking at colleges that might be ideal for your student. And of course, one of the biggest component is financial aid and how much it's going to cost for your student to go there. This is going to vary across campuses. Each campus has different criteria for financial aid, for scholarships that they're awarding, and also like merit-based scholarships or honors colleges. So the aid that your student is going to receive, it's going to look different at every school. So I know that for most parents, they try to apply to multiple schools so that they have that option. And then in that early spring, you would receive those financial aid award letters from the schools, and then you can make a decision based on financially what makes the most sense for your student. And then two, admissions requirements. There are some schools that are quite more competitive than others. So kind of thinking about where your student lands in respect to, is this a likely school, is this a reach school, or is this a match school? And then if you're a student, for example, that has a 504 or an IEP and needs additional support services, or if you're a student that knows you struggle with, for example, math or English, what are the support services available on that campus to make sure that you're successful? That may seem small, but making sure that, that you can benefit from the services that you're paying for is pretty huge in your college selection. So when we think of colleges, they typically fall within four criteria. So we're typically used to thinking about big public schools, state schools, so like your Ohio State, your Cleveland State, Kent State, BGSU. So these are typically state schools. So usually the tuition rate looks a lot lower than it would be at a private school. So I know oftentimes students are interested into a private school like a BW or Case Western, but that tuition price looks really, really big when you originally look at it. But what I try to tell most of our students is that that price will typically be reduced when your scholarships and awards are taken into account. So just because that initial price looks really large, don't be afraid to continue to apply to that school and see where it takes you. Also, of course, we have the difference between a 2-year university or 4-year, where some students are able to go to a 2-year school and end up in a career that they can still make a decent living. Like, for example, during senior presentations, I was like, if you're someone that doesn't want to be in school long term, you could easily go to an LCC and be a dental hygienist and come out of school with pretty much no debt and a good career that you could be in long term. So those are just some of the considerations when looking at the schools. So jumping into the anatomy of a college application. So typically, the things that are part of that are application forms, your high school transcript, SAT and ACT scores, letters of recommendation, essays, and then interviews. So application forms, so there's 2 forms at this point that students will apply to college. Actually 3. One of them would be Common App, which is a form that allows you to apply to multiple colleges by only filling it out once. So you can actually add additional schools, so that way you're not filling out the form 8 different times. It's just one application and then you can add schools to it. Or if it's more beneficial to you, you can also apply through the school's website. So you could do 1 or 2. If you're only applying to 1 or 2 schools, you could just go ahead and apply on the website. There's also the coalition application. So far, we haven't had a ton of students use it. I think just because there is so much to college applications that just staying between the black and gray, or the black and white between either applying online or applying on the Common App is, I think, the easiest way to communicate that to students, because I think there's already a lot of information that's thrown at them with college, so I try to kind of mainly work with those 2, and I think most of the other districts in the area as well. Second would be the high school transcript. So a high school transcript is something that they would request through their Naviance account. So all of our students have a free school issue Naviance account that they've had since they were in junior high. And their login is the same as it would be to their Chromebook. So actually, I know all of our Chromebooks recently just got the Launchpad, so they're able to just click Naviance once they're logged into their Launchpad. So that is where they would connect their college information to Common App, or they would add applications that they've applied to, and then add in a request for their transcript, and then I would be the one to review that and then send it out to colleges. And then Common App, or Naviance, is also the same site that we use for letters of recommendation. So that allows for all of our teachers to be on one platform and then go ahead and just send the letters of recommendation, so everything is sent out once. And again, all of our students have a free account for that. So high school transcript, typically in the fall of a student's senior year, I will meet with them during classroom presentations, and I will hand them a copy of their transcript. A lot of our students don't have an English class their senior year, so in that case, they could see me at a different time, or they could come to a different class's presentation. I can hand them that transcript. So the reason I do that is because that gives them a little bit of time to look their transcript over, make sure that all of their credits are good from freshman up to junior year, and that test scores that should be on there are on there. So sometimes we have students that take the SAT or ACT over the summer, and sometimes that might be missing on there just because of how busy that those first few months of school are. So just making sure that we get that on there. So it's kind of like a pre-check for them to double check that everything that needs to be on a transcript is on there. Again, if your student doesn't have an English class their senior year, or you want to see the transcript yourself, it's super easy for us to just email it to you. So if you just email your student school counselor, and we will go ahead and send that to you. As of right now, all of our transcripts have SAT and ACT scores added to them. And the reason we do that is because most colleges will actually take SAT and ACT scores off of a transcript. So it saves parents and students money instead of having to pay to send the scores directly from SAT and ACT. However, one thing to be mindful of with that is that there are colleges that do require the test scores to come directly from the school, the SAT or ACT agency themselves. So for example, like Ohio State's big on that. There's a few other schools that need those scores to be direct from SAT or ACT. And usually you can find that by searching. You can do college name and then undergrad admissions criteria, and it'll list to you the steps that their school utilizes to get a student to apply. Letters of recommendation, I typically tell students to please ask the teacher first. Before they go ahead and request it on Naviance, please remind them to give their teacher at least a 2-week notice, because it takes time, and that's also a good time for the teacher to check with them, like, hey, what are some of the things that you've done throughout high school? What are some of the things that I can note on your application? And 2, some schools will require a school counselor letter recommendation, and as I mentioned, a lot of the students, I have them for the first time their senior year, and in that case, there's just a Google form that I have them fill out with pretty personal questions like, what is your favorite subject? What are you planning to study? Things like that, that I can highlight in a college application. And then lastly, some college applications you do have to do interviews for, but this is pretty rare. Most of the times that interviews are part of a college admissions is if your student's looking to apply to their honors program. So a lot of our students probably would qualify for most honors programs that are merit-based. So it's all based on GPA or test scores. And what being part of an honors college at a college level allows you to have more benefit with financial and scholarships, and then the level and rigor of classes that you're able to take. So we have college visits that come in here, and that is a good time to kind of learn about what the criteria are for their honors college, but it's something that you can also find online. And then college essay tips. A lot of our students do work with their English teachers, but also I encourage you guys as parents to maybe do a proofreading with your student for their college essay, and just making sure that it makes sense, that there's no grammar errors and things like that. And then I know a big question right now that continues to be and has been for the last few years is test optional. So students often ask me, should I submit my test score or should I not? Truly, what I've heard the most often from reps is that you should consider submitting your score if your score is above our school average, which I can actually show you guys what our school average is in a little bit, because it is part of our school profile. So that is one consideration. Also, if your score falls above the school average at that school that you're applying to, then you probably would want to submit. And I know that a lot of schools have said that, yes, they continue to be test optional, so they'll admit students pretty much in GPA. There are a few majors that typically an SAT and ACT score is a must, like nursing. So nursing I know is a major that will always typically require an SAT or SAT score, or sometimes some engineering programs require that for direct admission. So if you're having a student that's going into either of those majors, that's something that probably their junior year or early in their senior year they need to figure out where they land for most schools, if they'll be a direct admit or if they'll be pre-nursing. Because pre-nursing versus direct admit to nursing mean a few different things. Sometimes when you're pre-nursing, that may mean that you're on a 5-year plan rather than a 4-year if you're a direct admit. So something to be mindful of. So when I talk about applying to colleges, I usually recommend that students apply to 3 to 6 schools. At the end of the day, I say that it can be expensive to apply to college because there's a fee that you're paying for each application that you're submitting. There are some schools that don't have a fee, but a lot of them continue to have fees. It could be anywhere from $45 to $100. And so at the end of the day, you're only going to one school, so it can be pretty expensive. So you should probably narrow down your list to 3 to 6. So when applying to college, you look at schools in 3 ways. So they're either a safety school, a match school, or a reach school. So a safety school means that you are above their previously admitted students, so it's very likely that you're going to get in. A match school means that you're in line with their previously admitted students. And then a reach school, it's a school that you're a little bit below what they're typically admitting, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. Me and like our other school counselors, we talk a lot about that there is no exact science in college admissions. It's just pretty much an art. Like just because your academics are matching up to what that school typically admits, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get in. It's not an exact science. It really is an art. So don't be discouraged to apply just because you're a little bit off of what they're typically looking at. So the best way to get to know college is to talk to them yourself or visit them yourself. So here at SEAL, we actually allowed our students 3 certified absences to go on college visits. So if you're someone that maybe feel that you're behind on the college admissions process or didn't get to go on college visits your junior year, there's still time this fall where you could take up to 3 days of certified absences by just filling out a pre-planned absence form. So you can actually grab that form from Mrs. Dooley. Any of our secretaries will have that form, and then if you can't get it from one of them, I am more than happy to print you a copy. But you just fill that out ahead of time, and then Mr. Tony is able to sign for you to go on that college visit. So again, you have 3 days that if for your family, it works best for you guys to go on a school day. Don't be afraid to do it then, because we can excuse your student due to the benefit that it is to them. And also, so right now on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do have college visits that do come here to SEAL. They're at 9:15 every Tuesday and Thursday. Some Tuesdays and Thursdays will even have 2 colleges here at once. And what they do is they come up here for 30 minutes. They use the same space. They come up here for 30 minutes. They come with like pamphlets with an overview of information for their college. And then they will go over what their college offers. And then in the last 10-15 minutes, they'll answer question. And I know, for example, our last year's class, Ohio University came and visited, and that was a good opportunity for a lot of those students to learn about their honors college. So we actually, I think, had at least 5 students that ended up going to Ohio University last year because they found out about their honors college through one of these visits. So it's like, if this is a school you're interested in, even though you may have visited before, it wouldn't hurt to kind of check in again and see what new information you might be receiving and how that may apply to you today versus maybe 3-4 months ago when you went on that visit, because things change constantly. So you just want to make sure that you're staying up to date with all the information. So once again, these college visits are all on our Naviance, so students can sign up for them. They would just go ahead, log in, and then they would just click on the visit that they're interested in. So this morning, or yesterday morning, we had College of Worcester, and then tomorrow we will have Cincinnati, and then there's a few others. And I know that colleges continue to book dates to come in, so I'm sure that will continue to grow a little bit more as we progress through the school year. So again, it is 30 minutes, and they do miss class, but they are excused to do that. we just ask students to be respectful of the time that they're missing in class so that they communicate with their teachers for any missed work, and that they make up the time that they would have missed, whether it's second or third period in that class. So later on, I will share another virtual event actually for college admissions. So we have a private tutoring company that's worked with SEAL for the last 3-4 years, and she works a lot with students that are looking to go into more rigorous schools, sometimes like the Ivy League schools and things like that. And so she offers us a free college night session. And in her college night sessions, she talks a lot about the Common Data Set. So the Common Data Set is a PDF that you can find for any school if you want to know the information for the previous admission cycle. So let's say your dream school is Case Western, and Case Western can be pretty rigorous at time. And you want to know where you land in comparison to the students that they admitted the previous year. This tool allows you to see the average SAT scores, like demographics, majors that they accepted, and kind of to allow you to understand where you could fill that gap and to cater your application to the gap that you might be seeing in the Common Data Set. So all you have to do is search whatever school you're interested in. So like you could do Common Data Set Ohio State, Common Data Set Case Western, and then you should be able to find that PDF for the previous admission cycle to get more insight as to the things that they're looking for, demographics, academics, and then majors in new applicants. So when applying to college, one thing that I think a lot of students don't really grasp very well, so I think as a parent this might be an area where you guys can all help, is the difference between all the admission deadlines. So I truly don't think in my 3 years that I've had a senior that like truly understands the difference. So regular decision is just that you're applying at the normal time. You're not applying early, you're not applying late. Sometimes this is like December 1st, sometimes this is February 1st, and there's no commitment to that. You're just applying at the good old time. Then there's rolling admission. So a lot of the schools that we know about, like the BGSU, the Kent State, the Cleveland State, the Akron, the Toledo, those are rolling admissions. So that means that they're accepting students on a rolling cycle. So that means that they're reviewing applications at all points. So they continue to review applications until they reach to that gap. So you can apply as early as August 1st and find out August 15th because they're on that rolling cycle. So there's, again, no commitment in applying rolling admissions. Early action is the deadline that I have seen a lot of our students use when they're applying to schools that is their top choice, and they want to make sure that they're applying early so that they can find out early. So early action seems to be the most common. So when you're applying early action, this normally means November 1st. So every senior, those 2 weeks leading up to November 1st, is trying to complete all of their applications and trying to submit Common App. I know like for our AP English last year, like right before November 1st, this was like a big work day for them because they had a lot of deadlines coming up. So early action, again, no commitment. It just means you're applying early to find out if you're getting in early. So this is really nice if you're trying to be all done before Christmas break and maybe even hear back from some of the schools before you go on Christmas break. Then we have what's called early decision. So this one is a binding. So this is typically when students are like, they've known since they were 10 years old or 15 years old that they're going to Cornell or a Case Western. So if they get in, they're going. So when you are applying early decision, it is binding. So that means if you are accepted, it is really hard to get out of that contract. So you're required to go there. So typically, I've had about 3 to 5 students that apply early decision. And in that case, I typically do have a form sent home, signed, and then returned back to me. Just to make sure that you as a parent, them as the student, and me are all on the same page that they're applying early decision and what that means for them. So early decision, not as common. Early action and rolling admissions, I would say, are the two that most of our students see. And for early action, most of the dates are typically November 1st or November 15th. So right now where we stand, we still have some time, so it's kind of a good time to be doing this meeting. For me to be meeting one-on-one with the seniors to allow for sometimes for them to work on applications and then to get questions answered. So earlier I mentioned Common App. So Common App is the platform that a lot of our students use to apply to college. So Common App allows you to fill out one form and then you can add in as many applications as you would like, and then that same information is sent to multiple colleges. So you're not filling out 5 forms or 10 different application forms. So it's a one-stop shop. So most schools nowadays have Common App. There's very, very few that don't. And in that case, you would just apply through the website. So I typically tell students, if you're applying to more than 2 schools, you should absolutely use Common App because it will save you time. So Common App is not something that is issued through our school. It is something that students create on their own. So they just go to commonapp.com and then they create an account and then they move from there. So I actually have a short little video that I will play just so you guys can get an idea as to how it works.
Scholarships once they've submitted. Here's how it works. After creating your account, adding a college is a great place to start. Common App members include more than 900 colleges and universities around the world. So there's a good chance you'll find a college that's right for you. You can search for a specific college or use specific criteria to explore colleges based on your needs and interests. Once you've added colleges to your list, the dashboard can help you stay organized. Here you can sort your college list by application deadline and view requirements details for each school. You can also see the status of different parts of your applications and each college's writing requirements. The application itself is made up of 2 parts: a set of common questions that go to any school you choose to apply to, and questions that are specific to individual colleges on your list. The common portion of the application, or Common App, helps you tell your unique story to every college you're applying to. Here's where you'll share information about you and your family, your high school and academic history, and any activities you're involved in. This is also where you'll share your personal essay. Under the My Colleges tab, you'll find specific questions and requirements for each college on your list. Every college is different, so it's important you pay close attention to what they may require in addition to the common portion of your application. Some colleges may ask for additional essays, while others may have specific requirements for submitting test scores or letters of recommendation. Be sure to check each college's information as their policies may change from year to year. Once you've completed all the required questions in both sections, you're ready to submit your application. It's that simple. Congratulations, you've taken the first step.
So as you can see, I always tell our students that Common App is actually pretty user-friendly, so there's like nothing confusing about really using it. And it's actually kind of nice because it's almost like a book of everything that you need for college. So it has like the requirements on there for the college. It has the deadlines. It has additional essays and things like that. So everything is in one place. So instead of trying to piece it all together by searching each school individually, that you can actually just have it all in one place. For juniors, typically Common App, you're not starting that until August 1st of your, going into your senior year. For seniors, that is already open. So again, unfortunately, our juniors can't really like work early over the summer or anything like that because it doesn't open up till August 1st. But that's still a little bit before school starts. So if you're, the first 2 weeks before school or 3 weeks, you can kind of get it started. So when you come back into school the fall, it's not super overwhelming what you need to do. So with that too, I kind of, again, just wanted to touch again on Naviance. So our students have had access to this since junior high, and this is something that, that we have used when students are doing check-ins with their school counselors from freshman up until senior or senior year. So Naviance is something that we use. You can actually also search, you can do the college search on there as well. A cool kind of data point about Naviance is that you can actually see where you stand in comparison to other students from our school that have applied to some schools, and in comparison to like SAT and GPA, where you stand in comparison to them and if they got in or if they didn't. It doesn't say names or anything like that, but it kind of shows you that data. Also, again, that's where you would be registering for a college visit if you're interested in coming to one of our Tuesday or Thursday morning meetings here with the college representatives. And then again, all transcript and letters of recommendations are required to go through Naviance. Whether you are applying through Common App or whether you are applying on a school's website, we only use Naviance for transcripts for colleges. So earlier I mentioned the test optional in the meaning that it has now for college admission. So a lot of our students continue to be confused by that. So as you're working with your student to decide whether or not they want to submit test scores, one of the things you want to consider is merit-based scholarship. So sometimes our students have pretty high scores and they're still not very confident in them. But those high scores may still qualify you for a merit-based scholarship. So it's something that you want to pay attention to. Also, like I mentioned, specialized program entry requirements like nursing or some of the STEM fields, and then the way of supplemental application materials. So maybe you did better on your SAT and ACT than your GPA would show, so that would make more sense for you to go ahead and submit. So also another question that I often get is, what do you recommend, the SAT or ACT? So as a school, we offer the SAT free to all of our juniors one time throughout high school, so one time, and it's only juniors. So senior year, there is no free SAT that we offer, but if you feel like your student needs to retest a few more times, you can actually pay for them to do that. And then the ACT, the components are a little bit different, so as you can see on the screen, there's kind of that difference between both tests. So ACT has the English, math, reading, and science section, and then you can do an optional writing test. And then SAT is typically evidence-based reading and writing. So reading, writing, and then the math section. So the score range is also a little bit different. So the ACT is between a 1 to a 36, and then the SAT is from 400 to 1600. And then the time component is a little bit, I think, pretty close if you ask me. I mean, they seem a little bit different, but for the most part, they're pretty close in time. So SAT dates that are coming up this school year, you can see those dates up at the top. Some of those have already passed. So the SAT test date is on the left-hand side, and then the registration deadline, and then of course they charge an additional fee if you do register late because you may have forgotten, or the deadline may just have passed. So you can do that online, and I can actually go through in a little bit also what that process of registering your student online looks like. And then ACT, same thing. The test dates are on the left-hand side, the regular registration, and then the late registration is also on there. And then they also do have a photo upload deadline for all of our students. I know that, as I mentioned earlier, we have worked with Erin Donovan in the past, which is a private tutoring company, and she typically recommends for students to stick to one test because they get to know that test, and they're a lot more aware and familiarized with that test. Me, on the other hand, I also do think that there is some benefit in taking both, because I do think some students do better on one than the other. So at least once, I would say that taking one each is beneficial. So good old financial aid. So the federal student aid application form is how most of our students receive grants, loans, or scholarships for college. So the financial aid application for federal student aid is a free application that we encourage all of our students to apply for. So this is typically based on taxes and income information. So typically, this is where I say parents take the biggest role, because although I'm aware as to what the financial aid application entails, I don't know each person's financial means or their tax information, so I can't help most of my students. I mean, every year I have 1 or 2 students that are like, look, I don't know what to do, I'm not getting the help to do it at home, and it's really, really hard for me to help them because I don't have that information available to me. So normally we do a financial aid night on our conference night in October every year. But this year we were made aware after we came back to school that the financial aid application form is actually being delayed for the very, very first time in a long time. So normally it comes out on October 1st, but this year every college rep that I've talked to says that it's either going to be December 1st or December 31st, but that most of them are assuming it will be December 31st. So I guess the reason behind it is that there will be big changes to the application and how you qualified for financial aid. So for that, I will kind of keep you guys in the loop as I hear. Again, not very much information out there. We had our financial aid night scheduled for our conference night. And that might still be possible, but as of right now, we don't have someone that has all the information to give us the presentation. I am working to see if we can get someone at the state level to come in and talk to us about financial aid. But typically, the way that financial aid would work is that there's a form. You put in all of your demographic, personal information, taxes, people that live in your household and things like that, almost like filing taxes. And then you submit it as soon as you're done. The earlier you submit it, the better, because the earlier the college is getting it, and then the earlier that you would be, the earlier you do it, the more aid that there is available and that you would be eligible for as well. So typically with financial aid, there's 3 different types of financial aid possible. So there's grants, loans, and work study. So grants is typically money that if you come from a low income or low income household, then you would be eligible for grants. So a lot of our students oftentimes are like, yeah, I don't qualify for any grants, so I'm not going to apply for it, which I understand. A lot of our students have older siblings, and they're like, yes, my parents filled that out, and we didn't qualify for anything, so I'm not going to do it. The only problem with that mindset, though, is a lot of the scholarships require you to have a financial aid application on file. So if you need to get, grants or scholarships through another way that's not financial aid, you have to have it on file. Even if you don't qualify, most scholarships want you to have that on file. So loans, of course, everyone is eligible for loans through the financial aid. Again, that is money that must be repaid after the student is done with college. And the only good thing about loans through financial aid is that the interest tends to be a lot lower than if you are going through a private company like Sallie Mae, for example. So sometimes when our students do have to take loans, it is more beneficial to start with their financial aid loans and then maybe look at a private company. And then work study is something that I learned later on in my own college experience that I suggest all of our students apply for as well. So work study allows for the financial aid to set money aside to be given to different departments on campus. So if you want an on-campus job, let's say, you want an on-campus job, you're a lot more likely to be hired if you have that work study destination on your financial aid, because that money is already set aside to pay you, and so departments don't have to come up with the budget to pay you per se. So it's a good thing to have when you're applying to on-campus jobs. So I tell most students, just go ahead and select that. If you use it or don't use it, it doesn't matter. It's just a good thing to have. So as I mentioned earlier, historically comes out October 1st. But due to the updates that are being made, we're looking at sometime in December 2023. So I will continue to share those updates over email, and then I will also offer you all an update on our financial aid night, and then also our school newsletter. We will have that information for you. Additionally, aside from financial aid, some of the other options we have is our scholarships. When you guys all walked in, there was a handout page for the scholarships available at Lorain Community College. I know a lot of our students are like, well, I really want to start a 4-year college, but if your student is more intimidated by the idea of 4-year college and is thinking of starting somewhere local, LCC might be a good option. A lot of our students qualify for their Presidential Trustee or Diversity Award. That is all based on GPA, and there's not much they have to do for it. They just have to agree to the terms of the scholarship, and that is usually good for 2 years of free college or 1.5 years, sometimes even 3. So something to keep in mind. It's truly solely based on GPA. If you have a current senior, you can even come up to me at the end, and I can tell you whether or not they qualify for that scholarship based on the list that we already have in collaboration with LCC. And then merit-based scholarships. So some of our top students, typically a lot of colleges reward students for being, having higher GPA in their graduating class. So oftentimes a lot of the merit-based scholarships are based on the 3.5 GPA. So this is another benefit of applying early to college. So if you apply early, some colleges will automatically consider you for merit-based scholarships. However, some other colleges will have a separate application for that, and then that's going to look different for every school. So I can't tell you one answer that will fit it all. In that case, is one thing that we do have to do some research on to kind of consider the schools that we're interested in. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, honors college. So We had 6 seniors last year who ended up at Ohio University because they were all qualified for the Honors College and they were getting a lot of money off, so it was ideal for them in terms of tuition. And then local and community scholarships. I receive a lot of emails and updates from the Amherst community and then just the Northeast Ohio community in general with scholarship updates for current seniors. So I will share those out with the seniors as they're going through their senior year. I will just go ahead and email those to them. But also this year I have been updating it on our MLS College and Career Guide. And at the end of the presentation, I will go through that website a little bit and show you what that looks like and show you where you can find some of that scholarship updates. So I'm trying to do a month by month update as to what's coming in terms of local scholarships. And then in the spring of every student senior year, the Amherst Schools Foundation and then the Amherst Local Community offers our students a large amount of scholarships. I think we end up somewhere near 50 to 55 scholarships every year that are being awarded to our seniors with multiple awards possible. And then that is always made available the spring of the student senior year. And then that also becomes part of our senior honors and awards banquet. So as I kind of wrap up a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you all, I think as you're all here, a lot of parents, and this is a question that I also get often is, what can I do to support my student? I say college visits is probably the biggest thing. When it comes to college visits, a lot of them are far. A lot of them require you to, register online, and students get lost by that. So being there for your student to plan those college visits, if they need a pre-planned absence, or maybe taking a weekend or a day off that you can go on those visits with them, or a long weekend. ACT and SAT registration, a lot of the seniors even don't know what it means or how they can retest for SAT and ACT. So for a parent to kind of sit with them and register them for SAT and ACT is pretty helpful. And then organization, our students have a hard time keeping track of like the deadlines. Like, well, this school's due this day, and then this school's due this other day. There are students that do great with it, but that's not something that everyone is successful with, because there is a lot of information when it comes to deadlines and organization. And then as I mentioned earlier, the one thing that I absolutely can't offer all of our students or even really begin to help them, besides knowing what it is the financial aid application. I can't sit down with every student and fill it out because it's not an area that I have all the information and pieces to make it happen. So I would say number 5 up there, the FAFSA is the main thing that needs to come from parents, and that students need to sit down with their guardian, parent, whatever it may be. And then typically coming up with a financial breakdown. What's it going to look for you to head off to college? Are we considering room and board? Are we considering you commuting? Is the LCC scholarship maybe a good option for you? So things like that. And then after they're accepted to a college, that typically comes with a welcome packet, and that comes with all the follow-up steps that you need to take care of. Colleges are usually really good about like a checklist or a step-by-step guide of what's next. So kind of just taking a look at those welcome packets as they come in and keeping a good list of what's coming next would be helpful to your student. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Erin Donovan, who is a private tutoring company, offers to do a financial aid night for Steele. It's always virtual. I can actually send the registration link for that to all of you over email. But this, I would say, a lot of the stuff that she covers is for students that are looking to go into more rigorous schools. So if you're looking to go into maybe an Ivy League school, what you need to be preparing for. So this is actually also very helpful for junior parents. So she goes very much in depth into like SAT, ACT, academics, and things like that, at this point for most of our seniors, we're a little bit past that point. I'm not saying it's too late, but we're a little bit past that point because we're starting application. So this is a really great event for all of our juniors. And then seniors, if you are currently applying to some of the Ivy League schools and things like that, and kind of just need a refresher or a second, step-by-step guide, that would be a good time for you to tune in, because that still gives you a few weeks before those November 1st deadlines are due, and that you're able to tweak your applications to meet the recommendations that she's making. So again, that will probably be in our school newsletter over the next few weeks, and I will share that with our junior and senior parents in case you want to go ahead and register for it. And then as I mentioned earlier, I have created an MLS College and Career Guide that you guys all have access to. So all the stuff that I went over today and even more is all linked right here. So I'm going over the MLS College and Career Guide. So as you can see, all of the things that you need quick access to or quick link to is on here. I know the NCAA doesn't apply to all of us, but we have students that are planning to play sports at the college level. So when you're planning to play sports at the college level, you need to create an account and register with the NCAA. And typically students do that either at the end of their junior year or early their junior year or even the summer of going into senior year. And I just continue to go on and update your transcript as you're progressing through your high school education. NCAA does require students to send SAT and ACT scores directly from the institution. So if you have a student that's planning to play sports at that level, this is something that they would want to look at. Also, NCAA has courses that are approved and that are not approved here at Steele. So these are the courses that are approved at Steele for NCAA, which is part of their criteria. So you can come on here and access the list of those courses. But going back to the home, there's again the 10 steps to applying to college, some information that you may need as you're applying to college, like our school code, how our class rank works, how our GPA rating scale works, and then the information for our school counselors. And then also the steps to request your transcript on Naviance, the student self-eval if they need a letter of recommendation from their school counselor. And as always, we have down here, if you need to request to see your school counselor, you can actually click on this button right here, and you are able to put in a request to see your school counselor at the earliest convenience. Earlier I mentioned our school profile, which is pretty much just information that it pertains to our school. So every school or high school has this. So it starts with our information, so like our administration, school counselors, and then athletic department. And then right here is where I talk about the average SAT and ACT scores. So that's what ours look like. So if your student is above that, then they may want to submit their scores. So this is our average SAT and then our average ACT. And then below, again, it goes over graduation requirements and then special programs that are offered at Steele. So this is a good resource when filling out applications. And then lastly, the scholarship sections. So I will continue to update this on a month-by-month basis. So scholarships that come in each month, students can come back and find it here. And then two, I have linked other pretty useful databases for searching for scholarships. The one that is through Ohio Means Job, the Cleveland Foundation Scholarship, College Now, like the Ohio Scholarship Directory, and a few others. So these are places where you could search for scholarships by putting in criterias, and then also scholarships by some of our most commonly applied to colleges, and then those LCC ones that I mentioned earlier. So with that in mind, I will take any questions that you guys will have. Yes?
Where did you get to that website?
Yes. So our website, you can actually find it. So any of you guys that have that senior newsletter, it's actually QR code on there, so you can scan it with your phone. But also, if you are on our district website and you go to Steele High School, and then you go to the school counselors, if you scroll, there is the College and Career Planning Guide, and then you just click on it and it will take you here. So Steele High School, school counselors, and then the Career Planning Guide. Yep. So the school profile is also on that website. So the school profile is 3 tabs down in the menu, and then also, again, part of the MLS College and Career Guide. Any other questions? Yes. So that's always a tricky answer. So I know that for the most part, it's really hard for students to apply independent, that usually it needs to be signed off by a parent. So LCC, their financial aid office, is actually really good with working with parents in that situation. You can actually make an appointment with the LCC financial aid office, and you're entitled to that service since we work with them as a partnership with our College Credit Plus program. So if you have like more specific question on your specific circumstance, then they're able to kind of answer that and find ways to work with you on that. Yes, even if you're not going to LCC, you can work with them, yep. Because a lot of our students too, they're CCP or dual enrollment, so they're entitled to that LCC service.
So if the FAFSA is normally due October 1st, but you're saying it's not due this year, is it possible to still go ahead and send it in early October, or?
So my understanding for the FAFSA is that as of right now, you cannot really complete it because it hasn't, because it hasn't been updated. So I talked to Cleveland State last week, who was here on a college visit, and she was actually a great rep. She mentioned that from the conversations she's had, it will most likely be December 31st, but that most colleges are trying to work so that students would have that award letter by March. So I know probably winter, Christmas break is going to be a busy time for all of you to try to get that done as soon as possible so that you can still get an award letter early in March, April to help you make a choice as to what's best financially for your student. Yes.
Do schools want your weighted GPA or your, like the regular GPA?
So we use weighted GPA, so you can go ahead and use our weighted GPAs. GPA, yes.
You said that the juniors automatically take the SATs. Do they're automatically enrolled in that, or do we have to do something?
No, you don't have to do anything for the SAT. So yes, all of our juniors, so Mrs. Rigda is the one to kind of be in charge of our SAT process. So she works early in the spring to get all of our students. So we take it as a school, so everyone is here, everyone's, yeah. So as long as you don't show up, you're good to go. Yes.
April 10th.
April 10th, there you go.
For the NCAA, you had, it was Division I, Division II. Do they need to do it if they're going to do Division III?
So they can, but the requirements are just not as strict as for Division I and Division II.
For NCAA, if they met like early eligibility or whatever, does that mean that their classes are all okay?
Yes. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys for coming. I will stick around afterwards in case you have any more personal questions or individual questions. And then as always, feel free to reach me over email or your own student school counselor. Thank you. Have a great night.